During the early Edo period of Japanese history, a new form of entertainment would begin to take roots, this being Bunraku, or Japanese puppet theater, a narrative and music-focused performance in which multiple puppeteers would operate the segments of a specially crafted puppet designed to be a vessel for the story. The purpose of these shows was to bring emphasis to the writing, characters, and narrative of the stories performed, as opposed to the other blossoming theater style at the time, the more actor-focused performance known as kabuki. This is why main performers of Bunraku, these being the puppeteers, wear darkly clad uniforms and are expected to vanish into the shadows of the stage, leaving the audience's attention focused entirely on their puppets, only revealing themselves on special occasions. This means the less you notice who's pulling the strings, the better the puppet master is, and this idea has reigned true throughout history, especially within the chaos of the International Assassins arc of Chainsaw Man, where we see a masterful performance from one of the greatest puppet masters themselves, this being the delicate and dangerous devil divination distributor disturbingly designing a definitive doll, Santa Claus, the devil-hunting assassin. Now, this video will contain spoilers for the main story of Part 1 of Chainsaw Man and minor details of Part 2, as well as other of Fujimoto's works. So if you want to avoid spoilers, you have been warned. Santa Claus is a major arc antagonist and the main threat of the International Assassins arc of Chainsaw Man, and it is their true identity that remains a mystery throughout most of the characters' run, as they assume the form of multiple people at once thanks to the usage of their doll devil contract, and they would begin manipulating the events of the arc behind the scenes to generate chaos, confusion, and control everyone within arm's reach, before eventually dragging all of their competition to hell. As well, the relationship with their partner serves as a great microcosm of the series' true main antagonist. Though before we discuss that, let's first understand the meaning behind their name and many designs. Now, Santa Claus is an interesting character naming-wise, as it seems clear that Fujimoto selected it to create a certain level of confusion and hide the actual character's identity till they themselves chose to reveal it, as the name Santa Claus is a pretty recognizable one, being instantly related to the Christmas icon of the same name. Thus, for most readers, they would normally imagine the mental image of an elderly man, which is what we are first shown at the beginning and throughout most of the arc right up until the true reveal, as in reality, the man here is just a perfect doll being manipulated by the real main body of Santa Claus living somewhere in the snowy forest of the Soviet Union. Now, this body could be considered Santa's true main body, mainly based on the fact that this is the appearance it takes when it is dragged into the mental palace of the Cosmo Fiend's library. Thus, this is the form they most mentally associate with. Now, the design of this woman seems to be based on Alice from American McGee's Alice the Madness Returns, with her own chapter cover even resembling the game's art book cover, which is an art book that has not only been recommended by Fujimoto for others to use, but assumingly has been used by himself in the past. As well, she seems to be an expansion on a design that we saw from Fire Punch, that being Nanetto, who is one of the only powerless characters involved in the major events of that story, which this aspect of Nanetto's powerlessness seems to have been transferred onto Santa's own weakness in her dying body, one which has difficulties doing even basic things such as holding a hamburger on her own. Now, the face of Santa is a tad different from Nanetto's though, with moles spread throughout her face, 3 on one side, which doesn't seemingly reference anything in particular that I could find, but likely because Fujimoto himself has stated that he likes adding moles to characters and their designs, considering the more moles a character has, the cuter they are, and I approve. As well, her initial introduction design also reminds me of another Fire Punch character, that being Sulia the Ice Witch, the pseudo-antagonist of Fire Punch. And I believe that this design is likely reinforced by her loyal student Tolka, who also seemingly draws inspiration from Sulia's assistant Jack, with the two of them having a similar build and facial structure. But he also tends to take elements from Chainsaw Man's protagonist, Denji, and the way that he is used throughout the arc itself ties directly into Denji's own usage in the main story. But we'll we'll discuss that later into the video. Now, outside of the initial misdirect of the character's identity, the Santa Claus name also seems to have been chosen for another reason, as I believe Fujimoto may have been referencing the cult classic dual holiday movie, The Nightmare Before Christmas, which was directed by Henry Selick, someone who Fujimoto has mentioned enjoying the films of in the past during the run of Chainsaw Man. Now, the reason I believe this is that we see aspects of Nightmare Before Christmas in a couple of places throughout the arc, but more specifically in the main design of Santa, as well as the speaking pattern of the Cosmos Fiend Cosmo, who constantly repeats the word Halloween. Though, I also just wanted to stop and explain just how genius the setup for Santa's reveal is, as when we begin to get hints about it in Chapter 54, it is clear that they will be the major antagonist of the arc. But before the chapter, and the moment with Makima, we are shown at least 3 different sets of assassins preparing for this mission. Firstly, we have the 3 immortal brothers. Then, of course, we have Tolka and his master, and then finally the lesbian dream team of Quan Chi and her fiends, which, after their introduction, Makima then specifically mentions Quan Chi by name, which transitions into her speaking about Santa, though she doesn't mention the 3 brothers, which, while in hindsight means that she probably didn't really consider them a real threat, or actually may not have known about them, but I doubt that. It also means that readers' suspicions of characters not mentioned by her is partly disarmed, so Tolka and his master don't immediately become suspicious of who they really are. In fact, since there are 2 unnamed people, we don't immediately assume Santa is either of them. And then of course we have the scene with the fake old man that follows this, that closes out the chapter, as of course an elderly man who works with children and lives in Germany is the most likely to be Germany's devil hunting assassin Santa Claus. And we have our suspicion elevated slightly when we see the old man use the doll devil contract to create dolls as assistants to help him deliver gifts. We also immediately see how devastating of a threat Santa could be with this small demonstration of their power, though this old man is never directly called Santa Claus by anyone in the story. Even in the volume releases of Chainsaw Man, they only refer to him as the Puppeteer, and this is because they are only a perfect doll created through the doll creation method. Which, speaking of, let's discuss the design and influence over Santa Claus's own devil abilities. Now, the entity known as Santa Claus has made a couple contracts throughout her lifespan. The Curse Devil, the Hell Devil, but most importantly, the Doll Devil, which has provided them a large number of abilities and draws its strength from the fear of dolls and likely the uncanny feeling they can deliver. And an aspect of the Uncanny Valley can actually be felt in the major ability of the Doll Devil, this being dollification, where anyone who Santa Claus or one of her dolls touches instantly becomes a mind-dominated doll, with the facial features and general movement that matches a simple dummy, looking close to human, but obviously not. The only thing that is immune to this type of effect is those Santa specifically chooses not to change, or fiends and hybrids, whose devil contracted part rejects the effects of. Though, after being dollified, Santa can momentarily return the sentience of the person who is turned into a doll, leaving them trapped in their body, unable to control it, reacting to every attack made against them. This tactic is mainly used as a psychological one against the person she's fighting, though. It could also be seen as a form of psychological torture, though creating dolls the standard way leaves obvious signs of the dollification process, which makes stealthy infiltration nearly impossible, though the Doll Devil does allow another method of doll creation, this being the perfect doll method, which, while the process is extremely slow in comparison, taking months to maybe even years to get done, it tends to be worth the wait. Now, the exacts of this method are partly unclear, but it would seem to draw influence from where devils get their power from, this being strong human emotions outside of fear, and Santa's master persona seems to have been designed specifically to instill these emotions in others. Firstly, we have her being introduced as a teacher of Tolka, someone who has shepherded knowledge to him and created a feeling of adoration, love one might feel towards their parent or teacher. And then of course you have worship, in which Santa demonstrates this through her actions, not only being able to casually stab Denji 3 times while he is specifically under protective watch without anyone noticing, she also has been the one who actively taught Tolka all of the skills that he knows. Tolka ends up worshipping her as a person as well, even wanting to dedicate his life to becoming a devil hunter so that she could retire. Then of course we have her somewhat sickly demeanor, minor, with her failing to even hold a hamburger properly and her limited lifespan led to the creation of a strong feeling of pity within Tolka, as he feels she has given up too much for her own good and must be taken care of, which then leads into that final emotion, the secret ingredient, guilt. One which is felt through all the other previously established emotions, as the feelings taught to Tolka create a sort of negative feedback loop. The pity contradicts the worship while instilling an element of adoration, which is actually, funny enough, the sort of basic idea behind the concept of a moe character. When Tolka feels one way about his master, the other two great feelings he has generates a level of guilt. Now, this perfect doll method, alongside the standard doll creation process, reminds me a good bit of the work that goes into Bunraku doll making. When a doll is created for a performance, they are oftentimes worked on for years, trying to perfect every little detail about the appearance and even using pieces of people in their design, such as actual human hair being used for the doll. This gives them a realistic quality unseen in other bit part dolls. As well, the process of multiple people controlling different pieces of a single doll could be represented in the other major ability of the Doll Devil, this being consciousness shifting, where Santa can spread sensations throughout multiple infected doll bodies. These include senses such as sight, touch, and hearing, allowing Santa to retain knowledge and keep it stored in other bodies to avoid complete mental overstimulation. But in her current state, this is actually rather archaic. It requires a lot of manual focus, but she has essentially become a massive hive mind that is nearly impossible to kill, as if one body dies, the next will simply inherit the will of Santa. As well, the perfect doll process is seemingly done to allow her to save a partial amount of her energy, since a perfect doll does generate a personality of its own. This means that Santa doesn't need to constantly control the perfect dolls, and they will work on their own to forward her goals. And altogether, this set of abilities already makes Santa a formidable threat to just about anyone, but yet, she desired more. And after a trade with the Darkness Devil, she inherited a fragment of the power of darkness, allowing her to call on to all of her dolls to amalgamate into one terrifying figure, transforming into the physical manifestation of the Doll Devil. Not a fiend, nor a hybrid entirely. This darkness-empowered form also supercharged the already powerful aspects of the Doll Devil's abilities. Firstly, her body is now comprised of multiple doll bodies at once, giving her not only multiple arms, legs, or eyes, or any other body part that she desires. This also allows her to combine the parts together to increase the density or the size of her attacks. As well, she is always connected and spreading her pain throughout every one of her dolls in the hive mind, greatly increasing her durability. This is on top of already having a near instantaneous regeneration factor that requires no blood. She also gains the ability to convert even fiends into dolls now, though it is unclear if this would affect hybrids, but assuming that they were given more time to grow their powers, it doesn't seem out of the question. Now, the design of her devil transformation form reminds me actually a good mixture of two specific things. The initial design reminds me a bit of the mannequin spider from the second Silent Hill movie, which is one of the only good designs from that movie. It also seemed to have a similar ability where it could give life to doll body parts. As well, another place that they could have likely drawn the Doll Devil's design influence from is one that Fujimoto has seemingly drawn inspiration from before with other characters like Katana Man, that being Dororo, as the protagonist of that manga is a ronin who has had their body stolen by demons and wears a multitude of prostheses, which in some cases resemble mannequin parts that look a lot like the ones that Santa's body is made out of. As well, some of his parts even have blades within them, which resemble closely the bladed arms of the Doll Devil's basic dolls. As well, one part of her ability where she can shift her consciousness to alternate bodies of different nationalities while hiding her truly weakened one from a near-omniscient psychic reminds me a good bit of the deuteragonist of the movie Hardcore Henry and top-tier heister from the Payday gang, Jimmy. As well, I believe that the fight between Denji and Santa was a callback to Fire Punch, with Denji specifically setting himself on fire to create a light that will burn Santa faster than they can regenerate. As well, the fight was mainly focused on keeping the burning Denji away from them, which is, for the most part, how a lot of the fights in Fire Punch go, as soon as Agni touches his opponent, he tends to win the fight. I also feel that Santa's darkness-empowered design, the one when she truly evolves, is in clear reference to the Darkness Devil itself, with the horns that grow out of her head being in a way that directly matches the top head of the Darkness Devil. As well, the multiple sets of arms is a key element of the Darkness Devil's own main design, and we can even see her use the same intense force-like attack that the Darkness Devil used against Makima in Hell. But I also feel like her design may have been directly inspired by the Nightmare Before Christmas, as I mentioned earlier, and more specifically Jack Skellington, as the two of them both share a same permanent smile-like design that extends beyond their mouth. As well, they have a similar gangly physique, and other characters in this arc seem to share a similar design influence. The previously mentioned Cosmo, but it seems like Sugihagi may have been inspired by Sally the Ragdoll as well. Though, I can also see aspects of Jack's own personality and curiosity in Santa's own character, as Santa seeks the power and wisdom of the Darkness Devil in order to improve her understanding of how the power of devils work, as well to satiate her own growing curiosity, much like how Jack seeks the knowledge of Christmas due to his own growing depression and stagnation of Halloween. And the characters share a somewhat similar fate, with their pursuit of knowledge leading to them being exploded and then forced back into Halloween. Though, in the case of Santa, she can now think nothing but Halloween, after the Cosmo Fiend floods her mind with every piece of knowledge in the world, ironically giving her everything she could have ever wanted in a way she can do nothing with. Which, of course, plays with the themes of the arc and in part Chainsaw Man itself. Though, she wasn't only after the Darkness Devil's power for the knowledge it held. She needed to power herself up in order to eliminate Makima, her true goal of the arc, and one that is hidden until her reveal. As rewinding the clock back, you may notice that every assassin was aiming to capture and bring Denji back to their said country, or at least steal the Chainsaw Devil's heart, though Santa Claus merely wanted him as a bargaining chip. And an element of this true motive comes from when Tolka and his master are discussing the mission statement. While the other assassins discuss killing or capturing the Chainsaw Man, Santa Claus discuss how they will skin him and take his heart specifically so they can advance in their life. And even while assuming the identity of the old man, they never mention anything other than finding the boy. This is because Santa was hired to hunt Makima, with a note left for him after the mission details were given. The Chainsaw Devil's heart was merely a tool she was supposed to use to gain power to do so. Though her and Makima have a lot more in common than they might realize, as she acts as almost a bit of foreshadowing to what Makima was truly doing throughout the whole of Part 1. As Tolka is to Santa the way Denji was to Makima, as she took someone whose life was empty and gave them a taste of every emotion that they were starved of. It is very possible that the way she acquires people like this is as a reward earned through her assassination work, as when she was hired to find Denji, she asked for 4 children as payment for the job, 3 for contract purposes and 1 for pleasure, though the pleasure in question was likely raising the child to become yet another future perfect doll, one that would likely replace the old man and Tolka doll that she was planning to lose on this next mission. Though, the end result of Makima's goals for Denji were much cooler than Santa's for Tolka. In fact, they match more of Santa's ultimate threat towards Denji, saying that she would never let him know peace, that she would haunt him till the day that he dies, killing everyone in his life and looming over his shoulder. A threat that Denji couldn't comprehend, but would become reality, as Makima forces him to kill the family he created over the course of Part 1, and even threatening to kill anyone he tried to get close to, because she didn't intend on turning Denji into her equal. What she wanted instead was to break him, shatter the Chainsaw Man down to nothing more than her loyal dog. Santa's character also functions as a great introduction to a lot of future elements that the series would use going forward. Firstly, devil transformations for non-hybrids or fiends, as one thing that becomes more prominent in the second part of Chainsaw Man is humans actually turning into the devils that they contract with us seeing at least 2 examples of this within the first 20 chapters. As well, she demonstrates the power of other raw human emotions outside of fear, one of the great examples of this being guilt, which is a feeling that becomes a key component in another devil's main ability, that being the War Devil, as she speaks on how her weapons grow in strength based on how guilty the person feels from making them. Santa really does change our perspective on how the world of devils work in Chainsaw Man, and she's truly one of the best examples of Fujimoto's favorite type of women, this being a commanding individual who dominates everyone under her, as her actions as this ultimate mastermind and orchestrator of events in the story is done wonderfully. She leads people to the exact places they need to be in order to get what she wants, a perfect representation of a master puppeteer. And her double contract must have left a good impression on Sakaku Hishikawa as well, the writer of one of the Chainsaw Man light novels, Buddy Stories, as one of the 3 stories in the novel features Kwanshi and Kishibe from the times working together as buddies in public safety. They end up fighting against a very similar devil, the Mannequin Devil, who can not only replicate itself, but also can copy the appearance of any person they touch, and is defeated ultimately for the same reason Santa was. They chose to fight a devil hunter who was truly crazy and had a lot of emotions to work out. Honestly, if people are interested, I'd love to actually go through and talk about Buddy Stories as its own video, so if you're interested in that, let me know below. And even in the chaos of the International Assassin arc, with many characters introduced and disposed of rather quickly, I feel like Santa was able to stand out amongst the rest of the cast. I also just think that she's rather adorable. Fujimoto might have given me a thing for dark-haired, green-eyed, half-devil Russians, but at least according to the Elden Ring ending statistics, I am not alone in my love of a night-themed multi-armed doll girl. Though I am curious if Part 2 keeps up its trend of returning devils from Part 1 with a twist, if Santa herself might return in some fashion. I just hope that if she does, we all end up on her nice list. Or naughty list, depending on the type of person you are. Anyways, that all said and done, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to help support more videos like in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MediNotTheBadGuy. Every little bit helps keep this channel flowing as smoothly as it does. And if you're looking for a last-second Christmas gift that won't arrive on time because of the time that this video goes up, so it's not really a good Christmas gift, but it is just a good gift as a follow-up, well, you can get yourself a copy of Shimonetta, A Boring World of the Constant Dirty Jokes Doesn't Exist at buyshimonetta.com.